On September 25th, the UN had a meeting where Israel was denounced by several countries, and not only that, they let the Palestinian Authority deliver a speech. And just a little bit of background, the Palestinian Authority is the civilian authority that ran both the Gaza Strip and the West Bank before the 2006 elections. When the 2006 elections happened, Hamas won the election in Gaza, and then they had a civil war with another party in the authority called Fatah, and this civil war ended with Hamas being having like an authoritarian control over Gaza. A couple things that the speaker mentioned is that over 200,000 people have died. Now, this is one of the first times I've seen this said in public on like a place like the UN. The number that the media usually goes with, or at least has gone with lately, is 60,000. For a long time, it was 40,000. And that's because this is the count of confirmed dead from the Gaza Health Ministry. And the thing about confirming the dead is you have to have their body and figure out their identity. And there are just thousands of people under the rubble who are lost, who don't have any contact with anybody, so there's no way to determine if they're alive or dead. But if people aren't showing up, they're probably fucking dead. If you watched videos of the war in Gaza, the invasion of Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, then you would know that there's like no standing full buildings there anymore. It's completely destroyed. They have like one functioning hospital out of hundreds beforehand, and it is just, it's madness. The level of sheer destruction that they've levied against that small part of land. He accuses them of starving 2 million people. That doesn't mean they're dead. That means they're presently starving. And he talks about how Israel is trying to expand their West Bank settlement project, which is a thing where they like allow families to move closer and closer into the West Bank, and it's an effort to take land, and the military and the government are like supportive of it, even though it's illegal. Netanyahu even brags about it and says that he won't stop doing it. So another thing he says is that they're ready as a government organization to govern Palestine fully without Hamas. So that means no Hamas running Gaza, which is ostensibly one of the things that the Israelis want, that Netanyahu is asking for. But as you'll see in a moment, they don't listen or care about that. If you tell them Hamas won't run it, they will call you Hamas and say, if you're running it, you're Hamas. That's how it works. He rejected anti-Semitism, which duh, and he called for the end of the war in Gaza, the entry of humanitarian aid, the end of starvation as a weapon, hostage exchanges, the end of the occupation of the Gaza Strip, the rejection of the plan of displacing Palestinians, and that the Palestine Authority must administer the Gaza Strip with the support of Arab allies. So allies. So they're probably talking about countries like Iraq and Iran supporting them, instead of Saudi Arabia, or what Israel wants is for them to run the government in Gaza. So then the UK guy talks, and he basically talks about the king a bunch, and which is completely predictable for a British guy.
His Majesty the King has asked me to offer a personal message of his congratulations to the UN.
He says some interesting things. He says we can't stand up for one nation's rights while ignoring others. And then he calls the genocide in Gaza, he doesn't call it a genocide, but he says it's indefensible, inhumane, utterly unjustifiable, and must end now. And then there's some pretty large applause. He says we will not rest until there are two states side by side, and that they stand with Palestine. And we'll get into it, but this two-state thing, Israel doesn't want it. They don't want it. And there will come a point, if Israel keeps taking land, where Israel will have to be forced to treat the Gazans, the Palestinians, like citizens. If they own all of the property, then they're going to have to recognize them as citizens. Or give them their own state, but we'll see what Netanyahu says about that. When Netanyahu came to speak the day later, He was first greeted with a whole bunch of boos.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall.
A whole bunch of countries walked out of the speech. And then the first thing he talks about is hostages. And he shows a map that he calls Iran's terror axis. And at the top, it's labeled the curse. The countries highlighted as the curse are Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Palestine. He claims Iran had a nuclear program and directed Hamas to commit October 7th, which there's no proof of either of those things. And he complains about being bombed by Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis. But right after that, he brags about the pager attack, which was like a terrorist attack on civilians. Just letting bombs be dispersed into a city and then setting them all off at once is a fucking terror attack. But they justify it because they say that they're fighting the terrorists and they represent the West. So after that, the Israeli assembly loudly cheers.
You remember those beepers, the pagers? We paged Hezbollah. And believe me, they got the message. And thousands of terrorists dropped to the ground.
He says that he wants to finish the job. He says, but we're not done yet, like it's some sort of like a TV infomercial. He sounds like a salesman. He claims to be broadcasting the address in Gaza, which it's in English, and I mean only a few Gazans speak English. So I think it's mostly for a Western audience, especially with how much he appeals to America. He talks specifically about the United States having done the same thing in the Middle East, or having a higher civilian kill rate in the Middle East, which even so, that's not excusable. And I don't think that's true at all. There's like 50% children in the Gaza Strip, so they would have to be classifying numerous people, like children, as enemy combatants in order for that to pan out. And I mean, come on. Children can't consent. They're being drafted into wars against their own like wishes. Like, so it's ridiculous. And he gestures to a wider Islamic surge and claims that Israel was able to stop multiple terrorist attacks because they're more powerful than 6 CIAs or something like that. Yeah, they claims that they are feeding Gaza and not starving them. But the only reason why they're feeding Gaza right now is because they killed all the other groups and kicked out all the other groups that were feeding Gazans before. And they don't want to feed them the amount that they were being fed before. They're barely like getting like any amount of substance, and they're being brought into these areas where they're getting shot as they're waiting for aid. Unarmed people. So, and then he ends it with this really like, it's like a contradictory fucking fascist statement where he says that the Palestinians don't want a state next to Israel. And then almost immediately after, he says that giving the Palestinians their own state would be rewarding terrorism. So he's talking out of two sides of his mouth there. He's saying, we are fine with our state, you know, or ostensibly that's what he's implying when he says that they don't want their own state. They don't want their own state. They just want to keep attacking our state and take over our whole state. We are fine with having our state and there being Gaza. That's like the logical extension of that argument. I don't think that's how he feels, but then he says that they shouldn't be rewarded with a state. So that's saying that Israel, as a policy prescription, the Palestinians shouldn't be rewarded with a state because of the Hamas attack. But even though he says that Hamas can't be in charge of the government this time around after this war, he doesn't modify his statement to reflect the fact that the Palestine Authority would be in charge of Gaza, not Hamas. Hamas would be ineligible to hold office. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point, and it feels like sort of screaming into the wind, you know. But there are people who are trying to do something about it. Earlier this month or last month, there was the Freedom Flotilla, which ended up with the people on it being arrested and deported back to the U.S. or their countries of origin. And usually they're intercepted out in the water by Israel. And this time around, I don't know if it's because it's a different organization doing it, but it's called the Global Sumud Flotilla. Maybe because they decided to do an Arab word instead of an English word. I don't know. But this flotilla is going to Israel from Barcelona on August 31st. And it takes a couple weeks to get there, so I don't know exactly what day they're going to be there, but usually what happens is they're intercepted in the water by Israel. Now, a few days ago, on like the I want to say contemporary with this happening, so on like the 25th, Tadhg Hickey, who is like a comedian, a pro-Palestinian comedian and activist from Ireland, he posted a video where he was talking about how Israel is bombing them with drones and trying to like scare them into turning back. He also shows like Greta Thunberg fucking mopping up the floor, which was a kind of funny bit.
Like drones overhead all night, explosions in the sky, like we're up all night being attacked in international waters. Like, just to give you a sense, guys, of our cargo, we're kind of a humanitarian mission, a non-violent mission carrying baby formula. Humanitarian aid boat or evil terror-loving scum-sucker ship. This is the shocking expose of Greta's death cult cruise.
Basically goes around and shows that they're holding baby formula, like comedians, activists, and well, maybe just that comedian, activists, and also there's someone posting videos who's like a like a world traveler type of like hitchhiker guy, like a travel vlogger. That's what it is. Because they were being bombed by drones, they actually were sent support from other countries. So before, basically, they would go in there and then they would get intercepted because it's just a civilian vessel. But this time, they got sent support from Spain and Italy. Now, as of today, their communications were cut, and so there's no contacting them right now. And the belief right now is they're being intercepted. But at the time when I was planning this on the 25th, the Spain and Italy had sent ships to back them up. And so I just wanted to kind of end on this article. Why have Spain and Italy sent ships to assist the Gaza Sumud Flotilla? Spanish and Italian decisions to send ships to assist Gaza Flotilla, sign of increased pro-Palestinian sentiment in Europe. So there's a picture that says all in boat, all in Gaza. And there's actually a live stream of it, or there was a live stream. So this person says that they're 40 nautical miles from reaching Gaza, and some ships in the fleet can't move very fast due to damage. Some can only move at 5 nautical miles at most. So about 8 hours from Gaza. That's pretty close. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if these folks have it in them to open a aid corridor. Basically, Israel controls the borders and they're blocking aid. There's like aid sitting on trucks rotting away because they don't like properly disperse it. And they allow trucks in, but only a much smaller amount than they used to. And so they're trying to build a corridor that's through the sea and hits the coast of Gaza. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens.